Are you looking for high-quality narratives that actually have a bite? You've finally found the right place for top-tier production and storytelling that stays with you forever. Subscribe now and ring the bell to join our elite circle.
My husband said it into a microphone, not whispered across a dinner table, not muttered under his breath during an argument at home. He said it into a live microphone, in front of 200 people, at the product launch I had spent 11 months building from nothing. Diana has been an incredible support to me throughout this process, he said, smiling at the crowd. You know how it is. Every great man needs someone behind him keeping the coffee warm. The room laughed. Not everyone. Maybe 40 people, but the laughter filled the ballroom at the Marriott on Michigan Avenue, the way smoke fills a room. Quietly at first, then everywhere at once. I was standing 6 feet to his left, holding the presentation clicker I had designed the slides for. I had written every word on that stage. I had negotiated the licensing terms with the manufacturer in Seoul. I had flown to Portland in February in a snowstorm to convince the retail buyer to take a chance on us. I smiled. I kept smiling. And somewhere in the back of my mind, behind the smile, something very quiet made a decision. I had married my husband 8 years earlier in a small ceremony in Asheville, North Carolina. He was charming then. A junior architect with big ideas and not enough capital to execute any of them. I was a structural engineer, with a patent pending on a modular load-bearing wall system I had developed during my graduate thesis. We fell in love the way people fall in love when they are both ambitious and lonely, fast. With too much wine and not enough questions. His name was Marcus, and for the first 3 years, the partnership worked. We started the firm together. I brought the technical foundation and the intellectual property. He brought the client relationships and the ability to work a room in a way I never could. I am not a room worker. I am a quiet person who does the math correctly and then does it again to make sure. Marcus could make a stranger feel like an old friend in 4 minutes. We were, on paper, complementary. On paper, by year 4, his name was first on everything. The website. The business cards. The email signatures. I told myself it was strategy. Clients trusted a male name in architecture, especially for commercial projects. I had read the studies. I understood the bias. I made a practical decision I told myself was temporary. By year 6, I had stopped being introduced as a co-founder at networking events. I was Marcus's wife, who also works with us. I corrected people sometimes. Less and less as the years went on. Correction requires energy, and I was spending all of mine on the patent extension for the wall system, the one that had just landed us the distribution deal. That was the entire reason we were standing in that ballroom, and by year 8, I was holding a clicker and smiling at a joke that turned me invisible in front of 200 people who had come specifically because of work I had done. After the event, I stood near the bar while Marcus worked the room. Our assistant, Priya, came and stood beside me. She was 26 and had been with us for 18 months, and she was the only person in the company who consistently keyed me on client emails without being reminded. You okay? She asked. Fine, I said. That was a terrible thing, he said. It was thoughtless, I said. Priya looked at her drink. It wasn't thoughtless, Diana. He knew exactly what he was doing. I looked at her. She looked back at me with the expression of someone who has been holding something for a long time and has finally decided that the weight is no longer worth carrying alone. There's something I need to show you, she said. Not tonight, but soon. I drove home alone that night. Marcus stayed for drinks with the retail buyer. I changed out of my dress, washed my face, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I opened the folder where I kept my original patent filings, the technical drawings, the load analysis, the university correspondence from when I was 24 years old and too excited about tensile strength to sleep properly. I read through them for 2 hours. Then I opened a new browser tab and searched for an intellectual property attorney. I want to be clear about something because I have seen comments on videos like this and I know what people wonder. They wonder why a woman stays, why she keeps smiling, why she does not walk out the moment she is humiliated. Here is what I want to say to that. I stayed because I had built something real, and leaving felt like abandoning it. I stayed because I had told myself so many small stories, about strategy, about patience, about the long game, that I had almost convinced myself the stories were true. I stayed because when you are in something every single day, you lose the ability to see it clearly. You need someone from the outside to hand you a mirror. Priya handed me mine 3 days after the launch. She came to my office and closed the door. She put her phone on my desk, screen up, and pressed play on a voicemail. It was Marcus's voice, and he was talking to someone I did not recognize at first. The voice of a woman, low and careful. The patent filing in Seoul is still under her name, Marcus said. We need to move on that before the distribution contract finalizes. Once the revenue starts flowing, the split becomes a lot more complicated. A pause. I know, the woman's voice said. But if she finds out before we... She won't, Marcus said. She trusts everything I send her to sign. Priya stopped the recording. I sat very still for a moment, the kind of still that happens when a large piece of information lands and your body needs a second to absorb the weight of it before it can decide what to do next. Who is the woman? I asked. Priya looked uncomfortable. Her name is Vanessa. She's a contracts attorney. She's been advising him since February. February, I said. Yes, that's when I was in Portland. Yes, Priya said again, quietly. I thought about February. I thought about the snowstorm and the delayed flight and the retail buyer who kept making me wait, and the hotel room where I had ordered room service and called Marcus, and he had sounded distracted, and I had told myself he was tired. How long have you known? I asked. About the recording. 2 weeks. I found it when I was archiving his voicemails before the server migration. I should have come to you immediately. I'm sorry I didn't. You came now, I said. I came now, she said. I came now, she said. I came now, she said. I thanked her. I asked her to keep this between us. And then I called the intellectual property attorney I had found 3 nights earlier and made an appointment for the following Tuesday. Her name was Carol Anderson. She practiced out of a glass and brick office on Wacker Drive with a view of the river, and she had the particular energy of someone who has heard a great many stories and is therefore impossible to surprise. She listened to everything I told her without interrupting once. When I finished, she said, "The original patent is yours, unambiguously. It predates the marriage. It predates the firm. It predates any joint business filing. No court is going to hand that to him. He's been trying to move the Seoul filing," I said. "Yes, and we're going to make sure he can't." She turned to her computer. "First, we freeze the intellectual property through an emergency injunction. I can file today. Second, we send a cease and desist to Vanessa's firm. Third, and this is the part I need you to think carefully about, we look at your business partnership structure, because if the firm is built substantially on your IP, the valuation conversation in a dissolution is going to be very interesting." "Define interesting," I said. She smiled for the first time. "Favorable," she said. "Highly favorable." I did not tell Marcus any of this. I went home that evening and made dinner and asked about his day and listened to him talk about a potential client in Denver and said the appropriate things at the appropriate moments. I had spent 8 years learning to do this. I was very good at it. The injunction was filed on a Wednesday. Marcus found out on Thursday, when the process server arrived at our office while he was on a call with the Denver client. Priya told me later that the color left his face so completely that she thought for a moment he might faint. He called me 11 times in 40 minutes. I let each call go to voicemail. Then I texted him, "Carol Anderson is my attorney. All communication goes through her from now on." He came home at 7. I was sitting in the living room reading, which is something I almost never do anymore because I am almost never that calm. That evening I was genuinely calm. It surprised me. "What did you do?" he said. "I protected my intellectual property," I said. "Diana." I heard the voicemail Marcus. He went very quiet. That particular quiet of a person who has been running a calculation and has just realized the answer is not going to be what they hoped. "Vanessa was she was advising you on how to move a patent out of my name before the distribution revenue started," I said. "I have the recording. Carol has the recording. The injunction is filed. The Seoul registry has been notified." He sat down in the armchair across from me. He looked, for the first time in as long as I could remember, like someone who did not know what came next. "I want to talk about this," he said. "You'll talk to Carol," I said. "That's how this works now." I moved into the guest room that night. I want to be honest. There was nothing triumphant about it. It was a Thursday night in a house I had lived in for 6 years, and I carried my own pillow down the hallway. And I cried once I closed the door, not because I missed him exactly, but because of the weight of all the years when I had made myself smaller and told myself it was strategy. I cried once. Then I stopped. There was a great deal to do. Over the next 6 weeks, the picture that emerged from the discovery process was worse than I had initially understood. Marcus and Vanessa had been working to refile the sole patent under the firm's name rather than my name personally, which would have effectively transferred ownership to a shared business entity that Marcus had already been restructuring without my knowledge. He had changed the operating agreement twice in 18 months through an attorney I had never heard of, reducing my ownership stake incrementally with paperwork he had buried in the routine filings I signed without reading as carefully as I should have. I am a structural engineer. I understand load-bearing systems. I understand exactly where a structure will fail if the wrong weight is placed on the wrong beam. I had simply never applied that analysis to my own life. The second thing that emerged was Vanessa. She called me directly on a Tuesday afternoon, not through Carol, directly on my cell phone. I picked up because I did not recognize the number. "I know this isn't the right channel," she said immediately. "I know I should call your attorney and I'm going to. But I needed to tell you something first, and I needed to tell you as one person to another, not through lawyers." I said nothing. "He told me you were separated," she said. "He told me you were in agreement. He told me you were essentially business partners at this point, and the marriage was over and everything but paperwork. I know it sounds like something people say, but I believed him. I had no reason not to." "When did you find out that wasn't true?" I asked. "The day of the launch," she said. The coffee-warm comment. "He came to me afterward laughing about it. That's when I knew." A long silence. "What you do with this information is your business," she said. "I'm removing myself from his representation. I'm sending a disclosure to your attorney today." "I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry. I have thought about that phone call many times since. People ask why women like Vanessa do what Vanessa did. Why she walked away from a client and handed over information that helped me. I think the answer is simpler than people want it to be." She had a moment of clarity. She was standing close enough to Marcus to see him clearly. Clarity has a way of moving people when it arrives. The dissolution of the business partnership took 4 months. Carol was thorough. The firm's valuation hinged substantially on the patent licensing revenue from the distribution deal, my patent, my licensing terms, my trip to Portland in the snowstorm. When the forensic accountant finished, the picture was clear. Without the wall system IP, the firm's market value dropped by 63%. Marcus's attorney made 3 settlement offers. Carol rejected the first 2. I accepted the third. I retained full ownership of the patent and all derivative licensing agreements. I received a buyout for my equity stake in the firm, calculated at the pre-IP adjusted valuation. The firm, the name, the client list, the Denver relationship. Everything Marcus was good at went to Marcus. He got the room working. I got the math. The distribution deal closed in November, 8 months after the launch at the Marriott. The retail rollout of the wall system was scheduled for 14 markets in the first quarter. The licensing structure Carol and I had renegotiated with the sole manufacturer was substantially more favorable than the original terms Marcus had been planning to sign on my behalf without telling me. I was in my new office, a converted loft in Wicker Park that I had leased myself, with my name on the door and only my name, when my phone rang. It was my old university thesis advisor, Dr. Park Hartwell, who was 71 years old and had written the letter of recommendation for my first patent application when I was 24. "I saw the filing," he said. "The new licensing structure." "You track my filings?" I said. "I track all my good students' filings," he said. "I track all my good students' filings," he said. "Diana, this is significant. Do you understand how significant this is?" "I'm starting to," I said. He laughed. "You always undersold yourself, from the beginning. I used to watch you present your work and wonder why you kept making yourself smaller." I looked out the window at the street below. A woman was walking a very large dog that was clearly walking her instead. "I'm working on that," I said. The industry conference in Chicago was in January. The Merchandise Mart, 3 days, about 800 attendees, architects, developers, materials engineers, the kind of people who read structural journals and argue about cantilever tolerances. Marcus and I had attended together for 5 of the last 7 years. He had always done the talking. This year I was a keynote speaker. I want to describe the 48 hours before that keynote because I think it is the part of this story that people skip over, and it is actually the most important part. I did not sleep well. I rewrote my opening 3 times. I stood in my kitchen at 2 a.m. eating crackers and wondering if I was making a mistake and thinking about every moment over 8 years when I had let someone else speak for the thing I had built. I called my sister in Cincinnati at midnight and she answered, because she always answers, and she said, "Diana, I need you to hear me. You designed a system that is about to go into 14 markets. You did that. Not him, you. Now go to sleep." I went to sleep. I went to sleep. The morning of the keynote, Priya met me at the Merchandise Mart at 7:30. She had come on as my full business partner 4 months earlier, a decision I had made the day after she put her phone on my desk and pressed play, because people who hand you a mirror when it costs them something are the people you want to build things with. We went over the presentation together in the green room. It was 40 minutes of technical content delivered through a story. The story of a wall system that started as a graduate thesis and ended as a distribution deal in 14 markets. My story, told in my voice, under my name. I walked onto the stage at 9:15. There were about 600 people in the room. I looked out at them for exactly 3 seconds before I started speaking. I have learned to give myself 3 seconds. It is enough time to remember why you were there. I saw Marcus about 20 minutes into my presentation. He was standing near the right side of the room, close to the wall, and he had the expression of a person who has walked into a room expecting to be the most important thing in it, and has discovered that the room has rearranged itself entirely. I did not acknowledge him, not because I was performing anything, but because there was genuinely nothing to acknowledge. He was someone standing near a wall. I was someone explaining the technical breakthrough that had made that wall possible. There was no version of that moment where he was relevant. Afterward, during the reception, a woman found me near the window. She was in her late 50s, silver-haired, with the kind of posture that comes from being the most competent person in most rooms for a very long time. She introduced herself as the head of development for a national construction group I had been following for 3 years. "I've been watching your work since the Soul filing," she said. "I want to talk about Phase 2. "Phase 2, I said. 12-story residential modular construction, 4 cities. We need a partner who owns the IP and knows how to use it." She looked at me steadily. "Is that you?" "Yes," I said. "That's me. I want to come back to something because I know it is the thing people want to hear about, and I have been building toward it for this entire story." Toward the end of the reception, Marcus found me. He looked tired. He looked like a person who has been running a firm on the strength of his personality and is beginning to understand that personality is not a load-bearing system. "Congratulations," he said. "Thank you," I said. "Diana." He paused. "I made a serious mistake. Several serious mistakes. Several serious mistakes. I want you to know I understand that." I looked at him for a moment, not with anger, which surprised me, not with satisfaction, which also surprised me, with something closer to simple clarity. The feeling of standing at the correct distance from a thing and finally seeing its actual dimensions. "I know you do," I said. "I hope it's useful to you." And then Priya appeared at my elbow with 2 glasses of sparkling water and said, "The development woman wants 5 more minutes before she leaves." And I said, "Let's go." And we walked away. I moved into my own apartment in February. 14th floor west facing, with a view of the city that on clear days extends all the way to the lake. I bought it, not leased it, my name on the deed. No one else's. The Phase 2 contract was signed in March. 4 cities. 12-story modular residential. My wall system in the bones of buildings that will stand for 50 years. I make my own coffee. I keep it warm myself. And I have learned, finally, the most important structural principle there is. The one that took me 39 years and 1 microphone moment to fully understand. The load-bearing element of any structure is the one you cannot afford to lose. Know what you are. Do not let anyone paper over it. Do not let anyone file over it either. If you are standing somewhere right now holding a clicker while someone else takes credit for the work you built, I need you to hear this. The math is always there. It does not disappear because someone stands in front of it. It is patient. It will wait for you to come back to it. Come back to it.